Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. So this will be a very quick update video on my giant maize plants. So I did a very quick video in spring. I showed you me sowing them and how fast they grew indoors at the beginning of the year. Now here in Scotland, especially North Scotland, we really don't have the climate for sweet corn, so they're much smaller than what they should be. These are supposed to be giants, about 12 or 14 foot in height. I think I've got to about 2.3 meters, probably about 7 foot or so. That's the maximum height I'm probably going to get. Maybe next year if I do it again, I'll maybe put them in a slightly sunnier position, because some of this is actually in shade for a lot of the day. But the growth hasn't been too bad, and it's certainly been much better than the dwarf varieties of sweet corn that I have. So coming over here, this is where I planted most of them. They were much taller than they are now, but most of them have been blown over by the winds. We've had some 50-mile-an-hour winds recently, and that's really blown them down. So you can see they've come down and started to regrow. Now the first lot I planted were these ones here, and they've, as you can see, gone to seed, and they have got some large cobs starting to form. One of them has actually snapped off completely and died from the wind. You can see this one here though has got a couple of nice cobs. So these ones were planted a bit too early. They were growing really fast in my windowsill because of the nice warm conditions and sunshine. I put them out, I think it was around about May time. We then had a cold snap with temperatures not too far from freezing. It put them into shock, and for that reason they started to flower early. So these have grown maybe just shy of 2 meters because they went into cold shock early on, and they haven't grown to their full extent. And unfortunately, even though I planted these quite early, I'm not sure these are fully ripening yet. We have one down here which is getting close. I'll just show you. You can see there's quite a few sweet corn starting to develop, some nice kernels, but because of it's towards the end of the season now, these probably won't fully ripen, so I'll probably not get any sweet corn off this crop. But I wasn't growing it for the sweet corn, I was growing it just for a giant plant. And then when we have the other ones that I planted later, they didn't go into shock, so they did actually grow a bit bigger. You can see this one here. It was quite big and it fell over. This one as well was large and it fell over. And then I did also have this one on the right. So this sweet corn plant that I planted on the right, I put in the soil much later on in the season with the second batch of seeds that I had. And although it's had a shorter growing season, it's actually grown much better because it didn't get stunted by the cold. So it's not quite at its full height. You can see it's just starting to put out the male flowers, but this will actually continue to extend and get taller over the next few weeks. But because of the time of year, it won't get a lot taller for me, and there's no chance that these cobs are going to ripen. You can see it's going to have about 4. There's 2 at the top. There's another 2 just starting to develop there. So if I had the longer growing season, this would grow even bigger and develop nicely, but as I say, it's too windy now, too cold, so they're not going to get much bigger. But it's interesting to see how they've done, considering how poor the climate is here. And as an example, I've got some smaller varieties over here. This is a variety called Swift F1. This variety, normally my polytunnel grows to about 6 or 7 foot in height, but here in my back garden, in the cooler climate, so in the polytunnel it's nice and hot because it's the greenhouse effect. Here outside, we've only got to about 3 or 4 foot in height. Quite small, straggly plants, but I have actually got some really nice cobs off them. If I zoom in over here, you'll be able to see there's quite a nice sized cob there. Even though they're small plants, each one's had about 1 or 2 decent cobs, and I've harvested some of them already. I'll show you the photos of them, and they were actually really tasty sweet corns. So even though the climate here is a bit cold for sweet corn in North Scotland, growing a variety that's dwarf and an extra early maturing variety means that they were actually able to grow and have a small crop outdoors, even though normally it has to be in a greenhouse or polytunnel for sweet corn to do particularly well. So that's all for this video. I just wanted to give you a quick update at the end of the season to show you how big the sweet corn had got, the giant sweet corn. As I say, if this was in a hot country with good growing conditions, these would probably be twice the size. But here in North Scotland, they're just that little bit stunted because we don't have the warm conditions that they need.